script. I'm going to start with the context of my work, which is the planetary crisis. And my argument is that the continence technology industry actually could have a very big role to play in terms of also being a driver of change. And I think it already is. After the sort of introducing the big context of where we live and where we all work, I'm going to briefly introduce the PAD project and its sort of research design and the materials that I've had and all that sorts of things. And then I'm going to focus on some of the results or findings of an article that is coming out actually this week. We have an article coming out in the Journal for Medical Engineering, which provides a working definition for holistically sustainable continence care and then looks at how the model works in the context of absorbent hygiene products, and then ends with envisioning the society as an ecosystem for holistically sustainable continence care. And I'm going to end up with that, and I hope that will lead to also some interesting discussions. So, the context, the planetary crisis. After this summer, I don't think it should be very unclear to anybody that the planet really is in crisis, and it's slowly becoming uninhabitable for humans. All the forest fires, even those that are presently going on in Canada, what was going on in Hawaii, roads, the present heat waves in Europe, let alone how the climate change is constantly impacting the majority world, it means that there really is a necessity to act rather soon, or actually now. The crisis is not only about global warming and climate, although that is of course high on the agenda, but it's about biosphere, water cycle, nutrient cycle, aerosols, and also other sorts of threats, global threats like AMR, pandemics, and so on. And all of these are heavily entangled. Just a couple of months ago, Johan Rockström et al. Came out with their most recent article on safe and just Earth system boundaries, where they argue that the rapid changes to the Earth system undermine really critical life support systems already, with significant social impact already being felt. This could lead to triggering tipping points that can irreversibly destabilize the Earth system altogether. And, well, we can imagine what Gothenburg will look like when the Gulf Stream stops. Or what will the migration flows be at the point when the wet bulb temperatures start to be a reality in the global south, and so on. These changes are, of course, mostly driven by social and economic systems that run on unsustainable resource extraction and consumption. This is no news for you, but I still want to kind of go through these issues because of the sense of urgency that is there. This figure is also from the article by Johan Rockström and his team, and it shows how 7 of 8 globally quantified safe and just Earth system boundaries, and at least 2 regional safe and just boundaries in over half of global land area have already been exceeded. So you can see the globe on the picture over there, and the safe and just corridor means it's not enough that we just have a safe planet for humanity to survive, but it needs to be also just. The areas of safety should also be justly distributed across the globe, it's really worrisome in the sense that if we have already exceeded so many of these boundaries, we really don't know what, and we really don't know what the tipping point is and how they come together. So the impacts of all this change, of course, are highly unequal, with most harm caused for those who are consuming the least. And the planetary crisis, in the introduction it was told that my background is in international relations and peace and conflict studies, so even though I'm now working with health technologies, this really is about making a just world, and if we don't have a just and safe planet on which to live as a human race, it is quite obvious that it will not lead to very peaceful coexistence among people. So the planetary crisis really threatens peaceful coexistence, and the change is likely to be chaotic and violent unless we take action, and we take it now. Unfortunately, the state responses continue to be really rather slow. And as you all know, what you do every day in your work, the corporate world is already doing a lot, and even more is needed. So I think I want to push you potentially a little bit further, or maybe kind of help argue that let's focus even more on those things that are taking us further. So, and of course, if you look at public policy talk, there is in different societies the questions of ecological and environmental burden of social and healthcare. It's kind of slowly emergent, but if you think about discussions in Swedish politics, or at least in Finnish politics, if you talk about climate change, that's a question of climate change. And in the very same discussion, you can then they can turn to the questions of social and healthcare. But very rarely do these discussions actually come together. It is slowly emergent. I mean, the NHS has its net zero targets now. There is some talk going on, but it's not like the environmental questions of social and healthcare provisions are high on the political agenda at the moment. And I say that it's slowly emergent, but I would say that because in these kinds of matters, state responses also tend to be rather reactive rather than proactive. So within 5 years, I think it probably can be quite high on the agenda, which of course then changes the operation environment for companies as well. So sustainable health technology, and particularly continence technology, I argue, can have a really big role to play in this change. But yet, nevertheless, holistic view is necessary. And of course, I've been following your company for quite a bit, and I know that you are already putting a lot of effort, and your values already are doing a lot for this kind of a holistic view. So, my question, or this is kind of maybe the question where I end my research project with. So if I would build the next research, I'm going to be leaving the academia after this project, but if I was to build the next research project, the research question for it would be, could the continence technology industry be a driver of socio-ecological sustainability transitions in health and social care and in societies more widely? And what are the barriers that it can't be, and what are the possibilities, and what is the potential there? And this is something that I will kind of keep on the table throughout the talk. So, of course, there is so much sustainability talk everywhere, and also in academic literatures. I mean, there are so many different literatures that are already sort of drawing utopias of more sustainable futures. However, all sustainability talk tends to fall silent on incontinence and on material needs of care. So you can look at literatures on planetary health, sustainable health systems, eco-welfare states, sustainable urban planning, socio-ecological transitions, waste management, circular economy, degrowth, post-capitalism. All these literatures, they talk about all kinds of things, how the future, in order to be sustainable, it needs to be more caring, we need to build caring communities, but none of these literatures say nothing about the really material needs of care. So in order for us to be caring and provide good care for other people or to ourselves, we need materials. And then it's a big gap in our imaginations of sustainable futures if we don't address those material needs. So in this kind of sustainability talk, it is as if the hundreds of millions of people who depend on continence technologies, for instance, for their daily hygiene, did not matter. Somebody called Smith, I can't remember his first name, but he wrote a paper on type 1 diabetes and insulin pumps, and he asked whether people living with chronic illnesses, if you look at sustainability talk that doesn't address these material needs of care, does it then mean that people who have chronic illnesses and these kinds of material needs that actually do require mass production, global supply chains, which are unsustainable also in these future talks? So are people who live with chronic illnesses, are people who live with incontinence even supposed to survive ecological sustainability? And this is really kind of at the heart of my research dilemma. I mean, we need to sort of be clear and understand and kind of not hide the environmental burden of care, but at the same time, we need to understand that also in the future, these kinds of technologies will be needed. Because continence technologies, as you all know, are of course necessities for their users. We need a future where those whose incontinence cannot be cured have access to products and that the products are actually functional and environmentally friendly. So if my worry is, and this is what drives my research, is that if visions of sustainable future, be it policy talk or be it academic literature or any other dreaming of what sustainability means, if those sustainable futures are only built for the liberal individuals who can walk and use laboratories and do things for themselves and do not depend on care. So if visions of sustainable future fail to address the needs of those who are not that kind of subjects, if the visions of sustainable future fail to address incontinence, we will not actually have sustainable future. And the reason is this, because if we would not, because a bit like sanitation system, if sanitation system falls through, the society will kind of collapse, right? But then how are continence technologies less important than the sanitation system? Shouldn't it be like kind of as high on the agenda in social infrastructures than the sanitation systems? 400 million people live with urinary incontinence and probably more. So if we didn't have functional continence technologies, if one day all supply chains would just fall through and we didn't have these technologies, the society would be heavily impacted. The whole health system would be heavily impacted. You know, just think of antimicrobial resistance if you don't have tools to manage uncontrollable urine and feces. Think of unequal distribution of care burden. If you don't have continence management technologies, then you will need more care labor of doing the cleaning, doing the washing. I mean, of course, throughout the world, there are people living without disposable continence technologies. That's also a reality. But that also means that it is, for some people, it is more burden. And also for those who don't have those technologies and with good technologies could actually go to work and be much more active, they might be actually sort of tied to their homes. So, so the argument is that, and this is exactly why I think that continence technology industry has a big but hidden role to play in sustainable futures. And of course, none of this is not only about impact on individual lives, but if we didn't have functional continence technologies, this would be a matter of population health, it would be a matter of health governance, it would be a matter of public economy. And I think the good point of comparison really is the sanitation system. I mean, everybody needs to have a right for safe and sustainable toileting, regardless of how they do their toileting, whether they need incontinence pads or stoma bags. Yeah. So, why continence care matters for socio-ecological sustainability transitions is, of course, also many of these products are disposable. Single-use continence technology do have a significant environmental burden, and of course, through that, impact on the Earth system boundaries. It has impact on climate, it has impact on biosphere, like all the Earth system boundaries are there. For instance, absorbent hygiene products, we know that in OECD countries, 5% of municipal waste comes from absorbent incontinence products, and in Japan, 10%. We know that in Australia, it's a study by Emma Thompson-Brewster and her colleagues, they say that in Australia, 4 to 10% of methane emissions in landfills come from AHPs, with rapidly increasing proportion coming from incontinence pads. And of course, we also know that the extraction of raw materials and production processes of AHPs have even bigger environmental impact than the waste. When I talk about my research, it's always very easy to visualize why is this important. You just show a picture like this, and because people, oh yeah, of course they are a big waste stream. But then of course the waste stream itself, it may account like maybe 10%, 10 to 40% of the environmental impact altogether. And we also know, and you in this room certainly know, that the industry has already done a lot and really, really impressive work in increasing the sustainability of production processes. However, because the planet really is in crisis, I would say that let's keep on improving. Let's keep on pushing the boundaries. To improve, still the focus should move to the upstream. I mean, this is my argument that I think we should really start looking at much more heavily on the upstream and what are the ways of impacting those. And optimization of material use for each individual user, which is something that could be done, and then we need more awareness of continence in health systems. It really blows my mind how little incontinence is known among health professionals, and if incontinence is not known, incontinence products are even less familiar. I mean, diaper is a diaper for many, and of course it's not like that, and there would be so much that we could do on the environmental burden of entire health systems if these kinds of optimization tools would be taken into account. And then from the industry, it will also require selling less products in product categories where incontinence can be cured, or there are less environmentally harmful products available. And it would probably still mean that the markets would grow, because you would, if we have a sustainable future, that would mean that there should be degrowth in the globally rich nations, and then there should be growth of well-being in those areas of the world where people still don't even have access to these kinds of products. So, So then we come to the term degrowth, which is probably familiar to many of you, but I'm still gonna go through this concept. So, it is an emergent paradigm change in the global economy, potentially. I think when you live in a crisis, it can go either way. I mean, of course, there are plenty of political forces at play at the moment that would do anything but degrowth. But there really are also growing trends and I'm sure that the corporate world is already paying attention to. So first, to recap, scientific fact: humanity is exceeding the boundaries of the planet. This is an existential question. This is no longer about let's be hippies and let's be sustainable. This is a question of whether human race can survive on this planet, and there is no second planet. Research shows that simply producing more sustainable technologies while committed to the idea of eternal growth of the economy is really no longer a solution. If we only produce better and more efficient technologies, that actually leads to the increase of carbon emissions, for instance, because efficiency, it means more. So eternal growth, if we want to keep on living on this planet, is no longer an option. So the present economic model of well-being, which is based on eternal growth, is gradually becoming obsolete if we want to survive. So this existential threat may actually very soon challenge also the traditional corporate model of growth. And I know that you are already paying attention to these kinds of trends as well. So if we want to keep the planet livable and peaceful, we really need a new paradigm for the global economy that aims at degrowth. And this is the key point to take home. Those corporations that start strategizing for post-growth world now will not only be market winners, they will be drivers for change, because the states will not do this. They have their heads heavily buried under the sun. They will not understand in the desert, the sand that is just increasing across the planet. So it's not only that let's get prepared so that we can maintain our market shares, but it's also let's get prepared because we actually have power to be drivers. So, D what? Degrowth is not recession, it is not communism, it is not lack of growth everywhere, all the time, for everyone. Very simply put, degrowth is growth that stays within planetary boundaries. If we look at the whole planet, it really means that rich countries need to find more sustainable ways of keeping or more sufficient ways for producing well-being than eternal growth. While at the same time, in the poorer countries of the world, those economies do need to grow because, of course, the gap of well-being is so high. Of course, though this is still really, really, really marginal in corporate, financial, and political world, and it's understandable because you, in the corporate world, you have the rules by which you have to play. You do have to produce profit for your shareholders. That's just a fact. But at the same time, it's marginal, but these kinds of trends are emergent. For instance, this May, in the European Parliament, they organized a rather large Beyond Growth conference. And if something like this happens on the level of European Parliament, it's definitely not entirely marginal either. So some of these kinds of drivers for degrowth on the corporate level might also come from policy and policy level. And then I have been following some cutting-edge thinkers that are already being listened to in some global finance world. And of course, we know that if the demands come from the finance and from the investors, that's the point where corporations actually need to have ready degrowth strategies at play so that they can be winners in that situation. Okay. So, as we're already exceeding the boundaries, all sectors need to radically cut their extraction of resources and their carbon and other emissions. And consumption, particularly in the global north, must be drastically reduced, also in health and social care. And I know that you have some really, really good strategies and solutions in place for this as well. So, why continence technology will have a particular role as a potential driver for change. So my argument is that within 5 to 10 years, those companies, particularly in health technology industry, that have integrated degrowth strategies thinking, or even have started thinking about degrowth strategies, will not only succeed the transition, but they will also be key actors in making it a peaceful transition. And of course, health technologies are central exactly for the reasons because without health technologies you cannot actually provide well-being and care. We can talk all kinds of lovely things about care and how we care of each other in the communities, but care is not just this. It's about urine, it's about feces, it's about all kinds of bodily work which you need more than just mere hands for. And yeah, you certainly know that better than I do. So, continence technology industry, exactly for this reason, because these are absolute necessities, they can have a pivotal role to play. Of course, continence technologies can look very different in the future, but yet they are absolute necessities. And they are necessities for not only individuals, but also sustainable water and sanitation systems. They will always be needed. There will always be markets, even though the market environment will look different. Presently, both the environmental impact of continence technologies and existing solutions to reduce the environmental impact are, however, largely hidden from view, like I said. But that they are presently hidden, that means that it's hidden potential. If we only can make societies and public health systems put continence health high on the agenda, things can start moving really, really quickly. And if I had all the power in the world, what I would do, I would put continence health on the sustainable development, on the next sustainable development agenda. having people talk about continence health. Right. And really, if you start thinking about these things in the corporate level, which I think you already do, really you have nothing to lose. But back to the puzzle in the nutshell. The puzzle of my research is how do we meet the material needs of continence care on a limited planet, and how do we make the future sustainable and survivable for those who leak? Right, and then to my project. So the whole project is called Emergent Unsustainabilities of Care. It's funded by the Academy of Finland and Gone Foundation for 5 years. Altogether, 400,000 euros. It sounds like a lot of money, but how it works, I have invented the project, written the project, won the project, and then I give the money to the university, and the university takes a half and gives me a job for 3 years. So it's and with the Gone Foundation money, I've been able to hire some help every now and again, like some researchers for a few months, but have it with, like, if we would have had the whole team together for the whole duration of the project, of course, we would have gained much more. But we have managed to do quite a bit. And one of the reasons we've managed to do quite a bit is that I was kind of mapping a territory that hasn't been mapped by social scientists and political economists before, maybe beyond the corporate world. Of course, this is the territory that you continue to map all the time. But there are very few, or actually no social scientists really, or very few social scientists working on continence matters. There are no political economists interested in continence technologies. So it's been rather that, and that's why, because you are a newcomer to the field, it's been very, and the field has been very welcoming. Like, I think I was 3 days into the project when I first met Nicole and Jesper, and I'm eternally grateful for all the help that and information that you have been so generously providing. So, right, the project design. The project is divided into 4 work packages, where I kind of look at the pad as multiple things at the same time. So if I had an incontinence pad here, it would simultaneously be a technology, it would be a commodity with different user groups, it would be a commodity for those who wear the pad, it would, or get them through the health system or buy it from the shop, or it would be a commodity for institutional buyers. It would be, of course, it's often understood only as an object of shame, but those who really need the pad, it's also a privileged use. And therefore, it's a site of inequality. If you don't have access to quality products when you leak, it's really one of the stigmatized life experiences on this planet. And of course, the pad is waste, and it produces waste. And so what we've done is we've gathered, it's a multi-sited ethnography, which is a qualitative social scientific method, and we've gathered multiple different research materials in these different work packages, and then kind of looked at the tensions that arise in between these different ontologies, as well as possibilities, and how these ontologies come together with particular focus on sustainability. What are the barriers of sustainable practices? What are the possibilities? What is it that we already know but are not doing, and why are we not doing it? So there are a lot of key informant interviews with different stakeholders, workshop materials, some survey data. We have organized utopia workshops. We've collected pad stories from users, utopia stories from health professionals, which has been really exciting. Then some materials with humanitarian health workers, and then of course all the materials somehow have the environmental sustainability element weaved in. So, and altogether, it has revealed a picture of how continence is everywhere, not incontinence necessarily always, but continence is everywhere in the society. It starts from the forests and goes through the logistics and through the health system, through daily lives, through working lives, through public spaces, urban planning. And because of course, bladders and bowels are everywhere. So of course, continence is everywhere as well. Right. Selected findings, observations, and questions. Again, probably not very big news for you. But continence health really is the unknown in the health system and in the entire society. The silence contributes in turn to the environmental sustainability. If we don't even know continence health or incontinence, or if health professionals don't know different types of incontinence, how are they even going to diagnose it on the primary care level, for instance? If they don't know continence technology, how are they going to help the users to find the right kinds of products? Prevention, diagnosis, mitigation, rehabilitation, and treatment of incontinence are completely inadequate in health systems. We have wonderful and amazing knowledge amongst the experts, but the experts' knowledge seems not to kind of leak down. And this has major economic, social, and environmental impact in societies across the world. The stigma, of course, stands in the way of change everywhere, and the stigma too operates in multiple realities. Continence technology is not adequately known. Then there are various very complex gendered questions there. When I started the project, I came through the sort of my work in elder care, and then there was suddenly all these questions about postpartum incontinence, but actually it has been working age men living with some other kind of incontinence problems, like prostate, that have been in touch with me. Emails, phone calls, bad stories, and many of them have not been able to talk about it anywhere else. So the whole kind of gendered layers there. There is lack of knowledge in procurement and care practices that again make these environmentally sustainable solutions impossible to get to use. Continence health promotion is heavily biased, of course, to the needs of high-income countries. This is like something that is, and it's also in my work, because the expertise tends to focus on high-income countries that I've started with there, and then what about all the rest of the world? And then there are also within society all kinds of cultural and religious biases and lack of understanding of versatile continence needs. And one of the sort of observations that I've had recently, that it seems that also within companies and corporations, there may be challenges if you have here some really good solutions, but how do they get implemented on the sort of national level of companies? Not all the procurement system, but also do the values really follow? This is an observation that I've done here and there. I don't know whether it takes place, but this is something to consider really. And then there are professional hierarchies all throughout the field, which of course hinders the holistic view. And this is something that I've been thinking that maybe it's something to consider in the user experience design as well, like who is the user? And what kind of, because there are various kinds of users to the products, what sort of knowledge hierarchies are there, and do we account for not only the hierarchies and all kinds of knowledges, but to the tensions in the user experience and design. Right. Main finding, however, is our main finding or result, maybe, I think, is our working definition for holistically sustainable continence care, which could radically change societies. And I think I've said it many times over why this would be. I'm going to skip through the publications, and I can send this list through Jesper to everybody, and selected other achievements. We had a really nice technologies and infrastructures of sustainable continence care symposium last year, and it was lovely to have all kinds of stakeholders to co-create sustainable thinking in this field and learn from different kinds of stakeholders. And then, of course, we organized the event with WFI, World Federation for Incontinence and Pelvic Pain, and then Sustainable Continence Care after the event was the theme of the World Continence Week. And then I'm also doing some collaboration work with European Association for Urology, who are seeking to bring continence health to the EU agenda, and then bringing these environmental sustainability questions to different professional organizations like ICS, EAU, NUF, IMEC, and so on. So let's go to the working definition for holistically sustainable continence care, and I will send you the article as soon as it's out. I hope it's like basically this week, and you will get more of it. this is probably, and this is actually comes very close to also all of the things that you do, because you've got sustainable continence care that relies on environmental and social sustainability, right? And of course, our definition is about the entire society. It's not about the corporate level alone, but really holistically sustainable continence care is kind of built on environmental and social sustainability. And if any of these triangles would be kind of too small or unbalanced or something else, economic sustainability of the entire health system would fall apart. And this is a message that I would really, really want to get across in public health systems, that to invest in good continence care, it saves you money, it saves the environment, while giving better care to the patients. And this is in the article, so I'm not going to go through all the details, because I want to go through the 7 theses that make holistically sustainable continence care. We argue that holistically sustainable continence care is socially, ecologically, and economically sustainable. It means the continence care needs of the present without compromising the ability to meet the needs of continence care in the future. Holistically sustainable continence care accounts for the continence needs of all people, regardless of their gender, age, all that, as they change over their individual lifespan. So continence is not something that you either have or you don't. It's like a continuum, continence health. So rather than treating it as a dichotomy of continence, incontinence, starting to think continence health as something that is with us from the moment of birth to death. Comparing the environmental impacts of alternative care pathways beyond the choice of products, holistically sustainable continence care integrates life cycle thinking not only in product development, use and disposal, but also in care practices. And I've learned a little bit about your smart pad family, for instance, and I think this is exactly, I mean, you were kind of already doing all this. Holistically sustainable continence care requires really a radical change and deep transition in health systems and in the entire societies. Furthermore, the socio-technological infrastructures of societies at large must be built to meet the needs of continence care and technology. So if I would live in a utopia, my husband is in construction industry, so if I would live in a utopia, we would have construction engineers who, in their training, are made aware of different kinds of continence needs. So then it would be immediately on the table when you build a new, whatever infrastructure, you would account not only, how do people go to toilets, as in the toilets that like closed cabinets, but how do people take care of their toileting needs more widely. So 5, because continence concerns all human beings at all times of lives, questions of continence are to be integrated into the design of, well, that's it, as I already said that. Built environment, logistics, sanitation, and waste management. Holistically sustainable continence care, however, I mean, this is kind of a working definition. It's something that can be applied, but it always emerges in existing systems, in existing health systems, in existing care institutions, corporations, and so on and so forth. So therefore, its specific meanings must be defined separately in each society and each context. The prerequisite for doing so is really putting continence at the center of redesigning sustainable societies. And finally, in holistically sustainable continence care, preventative care, better diagnosis followed by appropriate treatment and rehabilitation, and the tailoring of continence products to individual needs saves money, the environment, and improves the lives of people. This I've already said, but this is my final before a beautiful picture which I finish for the continence technology industry. And this is a talk that I would want to give to all continence technology corporations basically, and I would want you to get together as an industry, whether it's pad producers or catheter producers or urodynamics technologies, or these are kind of, and finding, I know you're also in many ways competitors, but there are some key aims that you have, and together you could be a really, really powerful force in being a driver of sustainability. But in the industry, the puzzle is really about ecologically and socially sustainable business and growth or degrowth that stays within the planetary boundaries while seeking to meet the needs of those who live within continents now and in the future. And this is the question that I leave you with. What kinds of roles will your corporation play in this ecosystem? It plays a really big role at the moment, but what will your role be in 5 to 10 years? What will it look like? And this is a picture of the society as an ecosystem for holistically sustainable continence care. Thank you. So I would be very, very interested to hear any questions or comments you may. It can just be a comment as well.
Okay, who do you think will be most responsible for driving sustainable continence care? Will it be the policymakers? Will it be the industry? Or who do you think will be the main driver?
I think that's the whole thing why I ended up with the ecosystem thinking. I think this is the time when we can't think of individual actors. We need to think about continence technology industry really widely, involving also patient organizations and expert organizations. I genuinely think that it would make sense for this field to get together. I know you're already doing, but really kind of get together with the sort of this kind of aim. And in that sense, of course, the most important player is the one who initiates this. Yeah, I can't do it. You may.
Thank you.
The most on the negative, continues to surprise and make me really, really angry is the eternal silence and ignorance of these questions. I'm not even a health scientist, and I'm not a health professional. I knew very little about incontinence in 2019 when I started. I should not be the expert in these matters after 4 years. So, of course, I've literally just grasped the surface here and there and brought these things together. And it's been possible only because in so many places these questions are not asked, and not even questions about incontinence. And also, as a social scientist, I shouldn't be the one who talks to my friends who are nurses who are not specialized in continence and knows more about continence technologies and how bladder and bowels work. This should be like this. This continues to blow my mind. And on the positive side, I have been. My background is in sort of a very critical social science, not in the corporate world, not in the biomedical world, in the fields where we have a sense that our knowledge as qualitative social scientists, feminist, political economists are not really always appreciated. And yet it's been so easy to build networks. I've been so welcomed. So that's been the positive side, that there is also among those who are experts on this field, there is, and that's also part of why I think there would be power, because there is already so much collaboration going between not only corporate competitors, but professional competitors throughout hierarchies among professionals and so on. So that's been a really positive experience. Because of course I wouldn't be here unless the experts spoke to me. It's strange how 2023 we can still have kind of denied that all of us urinate and defecate in different ways, and it's kind of, if we didn't do that we would die. So
very interesting presentation, and I totally agree with you that we need to break the silence because it's so important, this topic. What breakthrough innovation in your view would have the most impact on continence care?
Wow.
And would you put your money on better care planning and everything that goes into that from a sustainability perspective? Or would you go find technologies for recycling our used products?
I think I would start with the care planning, because that's where we've been talking about low-hanging fruits, because we already have all the solutions if we only learn to tailor the products for those who need, and care planning also in terms of prevention and diagnosis. And so I think the innovation lies there, and somehow I think it should involve a mechanism of education so that continence health education would be integrated in all health professionals year one. Like, whether you're a physician or a practical nurse or whatever health profession you're in, you need to learn bladder and bowel issues on year one. So, but yeah, care planning I would start with. But of course, I think we have the power to work on everything simultaneously as well. And of course, they are also heavily entangled with one another. So
short term and long term.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a question that is connected to that, and it is about you see that we have to connect with organization, governments, and so on. But do you see anybody who has the responsibility?
I think WHO should put continence health on the agenda because, and of course, the WHO can, I think in our symposium, there was a representative, and I think they might say, but it's the states that make the WHO agenda as well. But I think that's one organization that has the responsibility because, you know, that it's like as an agenda setting organization. But then, and health policy makers, they should be aware that people have bladders and bowels. Like, yeah. But of course, at the same time, yeah, I do look towards the continence technology industry as a wild field as well. And maybe the expert organizations like EAU, ICS, not just operating on the very clinical level, but really, really pushing to put this on the primary care level as well.
So if you take your project
Yeah.
and you look into what our responsibility is in this whole map of responsibilities, how should that responsibility look like? What is our role in this?
You need to hire me and I'll tell you. I don't know. But that would, as I said, I think that would be my next research question if I was to continue in the academia. But I can continue it elsewhere as well. Yeah.